The love that dare not speak its name.
Sexual orientation is an innate attribute of one's identity and cannot be altered. Sexual orientation is not a choice.
158 years ago, a colonial legislature made it criminal even for consenting adults of the same gender to find fulfillment in love.
The law deprived them of the simple right as human beings to live, love, and partner as nature made them.
The first step in the long path to acceptance of the diversity and variegated hues that nature has created has to be taken now, by vanquishing the enemies of injustice and prejudice and undoing the wrong done.
To change the societal bias and root out the weed, it is the foremost duty of each one of us to stand up and speak up against the slightest form of discrimination.
We must, as a society, ask searching questions to the forms and symbols of injustice. Unless we do that, we risk becoming the cause and not just the inheritors of an unjust society.
Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
The legislation does not exist in vacuum. Though facially being neutral, Section 377 effaces these identities. But these identities are the soul of the LGBTQ community that we need to understand.
It has been misused by subjecting members of the LGBT community to hostile discrimination, making them vulnerable and living in fear of the ever-present threat of prosecution on account of their sexual orientation.
The criminalization of carnal intercourse against the order of nature has the effect of criminalizing the entire class of the LGBT persons.
When everything associated with homosexuality is treated as bent, queer, repugnant, the whole gay and lesbian community is marked with deviance and perversity.
They are subject to extensive prejudice because of what they are or what they are perceived to be, and not because of what they do.
The LGBT community is a sexual minority which has suffered from unjustified and unwarranted hostile discrimination.
Court will not remain a mute spectator and wait for a majoritarian government to bring about such a change. Identity and sexual orientation cannot be silenced by oppression. Liberty, as the linchpin of our constitutional values, enables individuals to define and express their identity.
The immobility due to fear corrodes one's desire to express one's own sexual orientation, as a consequence of which the body with flesh and bones feels itself caged, and a sense of fear gradually converts itself into a skeleton sans spirit.
As a skeleton sans spirit.
We are aware of the perils of allowing morality to dictate the terms of criminal law. If a single homogeneous morality is carved out for a society, it will undoubtedly have the effect of hegemonizing or othering the morality of minorities.
Constitutional morality cannot be allowed to be martyred at the altar of social morality. Democratic as a constitution is, it does not demand conformity. It nurtures dissent as the safety valve for societal conflict.
Our ability to recognize others who are different is a sign of our own evolution. We miss the symbols of a compassionate and humane society only at our own peril.
As a basic human ideal has reigned the mind of every individual in many spheres like success, fame, economic prowess, political assertion, celebrity status, and social superiority.
But the search for identity in order to have apposite space in law, sans stigmas and sans fear, has to have the freedom of expression about their being, which is keenly associated with the constitutional concept of identity with dignity.
Even though the government is not proactively enforcing a law that governs private activities, the psychological impact for homosexuals who are, for all practical purposes, felons in waiting is damaging in its own right.
Social exclusion, identity seclusion, and isolation from social mainstream are the stark realities of a society.
The struggle of citizens belonging to sexual minorities is located within the larger history of the struggles against various forms of social subordination in India.
If individuals as well as society continue to hold strong beliefs on gender roles, that men are strong breadwinners and women are emotional, socially submissive caretakers, then it is unlikely that such persons or the society at large could accept that two men or two women could maintain a relationship.
Discrimination of any kind strikes at the very core of any democratic society. Different hues and colors together make the painting of humanity beautiful, and this beauty is the essence of humanity.
The case for gay rights undoubtedly seeks justice for gays. The effort to end discrimination against gays should be understood as part of the larger effort to end inequality of sexes.
We need to respect the strength of our own diversity so as to sustain our unity as a cohesive unit of free citizens by fostering tolerance and respect for each other's rights.
It is an inalienable part of their identity. The said identity under the constitutional scheme does not accept interference.
The individual is aggrieved because the law hurts. The hurt to the individual is measured by the violation of a protected right.
We must remember that equality is the edifice on which the entire non-discrimination jurisprudence rests. Respect for individual choice is the very essence of liberty under law. And thus, criminalizing carnal intercourse under Section 377 is irrational, indefensible, and manifestly arbitrary.
Mental health professionals can re-examine their own views of homosexuality. Instead of trying to cure something that isn't even a disease or illness, the counselors have to adopt a more progressive view.
For members of the community, hostility and exclusion aimed at them drive them away into hiding, away from public expression and view. An individual, in exercise of his choice, may feel that they should be left alone.
It is this discrimination faced by members of the community which results in silence and consequently invisibility, creating barriers, systemic and deliberate, that affect their participation in workforce and thus undermines substantive equality.
But no one, and we mean no one, should impose solitude on them. When the reason for a law ceases, the law itself ceases.
The society as a whole, or even a minuscule part of society, may aspire and prefer different things for themselves. They are perfectly competent to have such a freedom to be different.
Mere fact that the LGBTQ person constitutes the minuscule fraction of this country's population cannot be the ground to deprive them from the fundamental rights which they are guaranteed by the third part of Indian Constitution.
It is through times of great disappointment, denunciation, adversity, grief, injustice, and despair that the transgenders have stood firm with their formidable spirit, inspired commitment, strong determination, and infinite hope, and belief that has made them look for the rainbow in every cloud and lead the way.
In their move to build communities and relationships premised on care and reciprocity, LGBT plus persons challenge the idea that relationships and by extension society must be divided along hierarchical lines and define social structures in order to function.
When the liberty of even a single person of the society is smothered under some vague and archival stipulation that it is against the order of nature,
then the signature of life melts and life becomes bare substance, and resultantly the fundamental right of liberty is abridged.
When privacy interests come in and the state has no compelling reason to continue an existing law which penalizes same-sex couples who cause no harm to others,
LGBT persons, like other heterosexuals, are entitled to privacy and the right to lead a dignified existence without fear of persecution.
The Constitution assures to every individual the right to lead a dignified life. It prohibits discrimination within society. It is for this reason that constitutional morality requires this court to issue a declaration.
Which we do now.
That LGBT individuals are equal citizens of India.
That they cannot be discriminated against. That they have the right to express themselves through their most intimate choices.
In upholding constitutional morality, we affirm that the protection of the rights of LGBT individuals are not only about guaranteeing a minority their rightful place in the constitutional scheme,
but that we equally speak of the vision and the kind of country we want to live in and what it means for the majority.
History owes an apology.
History owes an apology.
History owes an apology to the members of this community and their families for the delay in providing redressal, for the ignominy and ostracism that they have suffered through the centuries. This was on account of the ignorance of the majority to recognize that homosexuality is a completely natural condition, a part of a range of human sexuality.
The misapplication of this provision denied them the fundamental right to equality guaranteed under Article 14.
It infringed the fundamental right to non-discrimination under Article 15 and the fundamental right to live a life of dignity and privacy guaranteed by Article 21.
The LGBT persons deserve to live a life unshackled with the shadows of being unapprehended felons.